There are a lot of things that we may have learned in school when we learned about ABA. But the thing with ABA is that it's a science that is constantly changing and evolving. So, although what we learned then still applies, we may talk about it differently today when we want to use a person centered approach to behavior management. Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna. We're behavior analysts that create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about behavior management using the Universal Protocol. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So when I was becoming a BCBA, I also had three really young kids. And I was so focused on the rules of behavior analysis, which said I need to follow through, I need to enforce things, I need to be consistent. And I was having a really hard time because that's almost impossible. And somebody else in the field gave me some really good advice. And she said, instead of thinking about following through, try empathizing with your kids. If they come home having like a really bad day, instead of thinking, well, they still need to do their homework and they still need to clean up and they still need to take their bath, try just acknowledging and validating how they're feeling right now. Let go of the following through. And I found that it worked so well. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, just a personal note, it like really upsets me if I'm venting and someone tries to give me a bunch of advice right away. I just want to hug sometimes. I just want to vent. But we do have some outdated strategies in our field, right? So if you look at what we may have learned in school years ago, we've got topics in school that we learned like extinction, like a broken record, full physical prompts. We want to try and avoid those as much as possible now. But, that's what we were taught, keeping the demand on at all costs and not allowing for that escape, ignoring or planned ignoring. And, we've learned about all of these strategies over the years and, science is ever evolving. So we need to evolve as well.
Yeah, we want to be more focused on the learner. So what does that look like? It doesn't mean that we don't enforce anything. It doesn't mean we never follow through. So what does it mean? It means that we want to be able to set and hold boundaries, but with empathy. So the first thing is always trying to label and empathize. So putting yourself in someone else's condition and then reflecting, I know this is hard. I know you may not want to. And then you can be firm and still hold that boundary, but this is not safe and I'm not going to let you do this. Redirect them to something else. Let's go check the schedule or let's go see what we are supposed to be doing because this is not an option. And then always being there to encourage and prompt. You want to come across as the cheerleader and the teacher, not the controller. You don't want to be somebody who they're getting into power struggles with. So the way that we do that is by telling them, then by showing them, and then by helping them. So if they're doing something unsafe, you would tell them, that's not safe. I'm not going to let you do that. You could show them. If they don't respond immediately to telling, then you would show them, this is how we're going to get down from that ledge. And then if they're not doing it from showing, you may help them get down. So you're going to slowly escalate your level of support and then reinforce, but genuinely reinforce. So tell them that, they are really doing a great job. And then that was really hard for them and they did it anyway. And that would be, how we would approach setting and holding boundaries and demands that don't just feel like power struggles.
When we talk about person-centered approach, many of us in our heads think about, oh, well, let the person lead and we just follow and everything else. And it's not like that at all. If there's still boundaries that need to be set, we're the teachers, we're the adults in this situation, and we need to give those boundaries. We just need to set them with kindness.
Yeah. And so part of when we talk about Universal Protocol, which was developed by Dr. Hanley and his team, is how to create an environment where, at least at a bare minimum, our students are safe. We have developed a relationship with them, which they call rapport, and that we are preserving their dignity. They talk about something called televisability, which I think is a made up word, but it works, which is that if somebody were to record your session and there was always somebody watching the way you were interacting with this student, would you be proud of that? Would it be in a way that you are preserving their dignity? We want to be able to provide really meaningful support for students who engage in some severe problem behavior while still preserving their safety, their dignity, and the relationship.
That is so huge, right? Another step with the universal protocol is really being proactive.
Yeah. So what that means is we still, like we approach any behaviors, how do we prevent it, right? With especially with severe challenging behavior, we want to do everything we can to prevent an escalation. So what that means is you want to just continuously be providing positivity and empathy. There's a way to be kind but firm. You want to create an environment where we're respecting kids' dignity, being positive, being caring in a way that isn't, you're not, again, letting them do whatever they want to do. You're still placing those boundaries, but kindly, but it's still positive. We're not using like sarcasm and really firm language or talking down to our kids. And that's the kind of environment we need to be proactively creating.
And when Sherry uses the word proactive, I automatically think of antecedent strategies, and those antecedent strategies that we've learned from years ago. I mean, they talk about enriching the environment, right? Giving people lots of things to do. You want multiple preferred activities and incorporating elements of choice within your session. And that's huge. And that's also proactive strategies.
Yeah. And sometimes we think, well, this is a classroom. They're just going to have to do what they don't want to do. They're just going to have to do things because I said so. And what the universal protocol is telling us is like, maybe they don't, because if they're getting out of those things with severe challenging behavior, then instead of getting into that power struggle, again, try to offer them more preferred activities freely in their environment. And that's also when we say follow the child's lead to the extent possible. What is it that they're interested in? So it doesn't mean that they get to do nothing all day and they're like, sitting by themselves playing Lego, but it does mean if they're really into Lego, then maybe the worksheets are Lego characters, or maybe they do get to choose between a couple minutes of Lego or reading a book. So you can follow the child's lead and also limit as many non-essential demands as possible. So if you think about, and if you were to record how many demands you potentially give your child, your student, your client throughout the day, I think you would be shocked at how much we're saying, come over here, do this, go line up, don't do that, hand in your paper. It's a day of constant demands. And so especially with kids who may struggle with challenging behavior, you want to limit those questions and demands as much as possible, but you do not want to limit or redirect their stereotypy. So that also feels like a demand. So really let them be them.
It's really interesting. So I go into families' homes sometimes to consult. And one of the comments, actually a lot of comments that I get from parents and sometimes even from teachers when they see really good ABA therapists work, their comments are, well, she didn't use that much language. I thought you were really trying to promote language with my son or daughter. And I say, well, yeah, we were really trying to promote language. And, when they're in a positive place, when they're regulated, we can give them a lot of language. But when they're not regulated, when, they're not having a good time, we really do need to limit those demands and limit our language, because every time we speak, it can be a demand. I smiled, and bless my mom's soul, I love her to death. However, every time she talks, especially when I was a teenager, it came across as a demand, 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 demand. So sometimes it seems counterintuitive, but we actually have to limit our language in order to create this positive environment.
Yeah. So in order to make those demands, but make them less aversive, you could use nonverbal support if possible. I love schedules for this reason, because I didn't say so. The schedule said so. You can use any kind of visual support to prompt instead of verbal. Stop asking so many questions, stop giving so many reminders. As much as you can, offer them a choice. So if you do have to say something, it could be, would you like to do this or this? Or what are you interested in? Rethinking if the demand is even necessary. Often, sometimes we say things to make ourselves feel like we're being effective, but it's not actually helpful. Or then thinking about whatever the least intrusive, most effective prompting would be in order to get that demand across.
We also want to work to prevent escalation to severe problem behavior, right? So, if you're seeing severe escalation happening, I mean, but looking at that trigger and going, okay, well, even some antecedents to severe problem behavior. So I know that, as my student's ears get really red, or as my student, starts to tap his or her foot or snap his fingers or something like that, I know that that escalation is happening. If you can see some of those precursors, at that moment, you want to ease off on demand. You don't want to push it so that it gets to the space where it's severe problem behavior.
And this is one of the biggest, I think, shifts where in the past we may have been, well, there's problem behavior, and now I need to double down even harder and really follow through, because I don't want them to learn that this gets them what they want. And what we're saying here is notice those first instances of problem behavior, whatever that precursor is, whatever that small little communication that they're telling you is that they're starting to struggle. Acknowledge what they're trying to say. Oh, I see you getting, really anxious, or you're making a sound that's telling me that you don't want to do this. And then you want to terminate the demands and expectations. Again, this is for a child who is prone to severe challenging behavior. You don't want to wait until it gets worse. You might want to put something in place now where you are reinforcing at lower levels of that behavior, whatever that precursor is. You want to terminate the demands and expectations then. This does not mean all of a sudden we ignore. It means giving space, but be available to them. I'm right here. Empathize, acknowledge, validate, be available to them, and provide them access to their reinforcers. So if it's that they're starting to get upset because they'd rather be playing Lego, then they can go and play Lego at the slightest sound of a grunt or a sound before it gets to the escalated screaming or kicking.
I'm going to cut you off right there because we get a lot of questions about that. And it's so counterintuitive to everything we've learned. What do you mean they're engaging in some type of problem behavior and we're giving them access to reinforcers? What Sheer is really trying to say is that if a student is engaging, I'm talking about severe problem behavior. So if a student, engages in property destruction, throws everything off the table, I've seen it flip the table upside down, engages in aggression, whatever it is, and it might be escape motivated behavior, chances are in that moment, they're escaping the task anyways as they're engaging in this negative behavior, and they may run off to their preferred activities anyway. So they've learned already that contingency is I escalate to this level and I get this, or I don't have to do this. So what Sheer is saying is instead of it getting to that level, because again, it's safety. And like she said earlier, dignity, like clients don't want to get to that level either. You want to recognize those precursors and go, oh, I see you're getting upset. Do you need a moment? That's what someone would do to me. Look, Shayna, you look like you look like you need a moment. Just go take some water, go take a deep breath for a second, right? It's what we're doing to our clients because they're going to get it anyway. So we need to basically reestablish that learning process so that they learn that they only have to engage in this tiny little behavior to get what they want instead of this big, incredible behavior, so that we're at least shaping what that severe negative behavior looks like.
Right. And we've learned that not much is taught in the moment of a challenging behavior. So while it makes us feel better sometimes to know that we followed through, the child isn't learning anything usually in terms of what contingencies are happening. And so instead, if you can reinforce at a lower level, listen to their requests, try to satisfy them, keep them calm. And then the important part is let's document that, because this is going to be a learning experience for me. Where did I push too hard? What communication skills can I teach them to replace that? How do we get them to go further next time without that precursor behavior? And I think the other big mind shift is that our goal is to keep our kids safe and prevent escalation, even at the expense of following through. And I think for so long, we've been trained and learned that no matter what, you need to follow through. And I think what we're saying now is that safety and dignity are a priority, and we can always learn something and change for next time. But right now, we may be giving up that following through.
And I really like that we do constantly need to be asking ourselves, what did we just learn from this experience? And it's not, well, I should have followed through. That's not what we learned from the experience. We learned that math sheet was really hard. Like, it's really difficult for my learner to put pencil to paper, or it's really difficult for my learner. We jump too fast in this particular step. We want to be constantly analyzing that piece of it, because we know from research that, negative behavior stems from, not having relevant skills. So looking at what we've learned from it and how do we teach that replacement behavior?
Yeah, and something I say often to a lot of the staff is let's reframe the behavior. The way that we've been approaching behavior is not that they're giving us a hard time. They're really having a hard time. We have to approach our students and our kids that they will do well if they can. And if they're not doing well, it's because they can't. It's not because they're choosing not to. Even if you think it's a stretch, and for a lot of people, it might be a stretch, still approach our kids with that type of reframing, avoiding that power struggle and avoiding thinking that they're doing this on purpose. And that also helps us not provoke the behavior and come at it more compassionately and empathetically.
We talked about replacement behavior. We have another video on functional communication training, which is, goes hand in hand with replacement behavior. So check out our other video on FCT. So click the link in and around this video to join our next live CEU event on child-centered approach to behavior management. It's on Thursday, May 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.